Hey everyone, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic Friday. I seriously cannot believe we are that much closer to the 2021-2022 school year beginning. A lot of teachers have already started going back. I'm not sure if you're on Instagram or not, but there are teachers who already met their students this past week, and that is absolutely wild to me. So if you are a teacher that's going back sooner than later, this podcast episode today is totally for you. Today we're talking all about how to thrive during your first week in the classroom, because this past Wednesday we had our College to Classroom Success Summit. And first of all, can I just start off by saying, oh my gosh, it was so good. Sydney and I knew it was going to be good, but our expectations were blown out of the water. The way the day flowed, the people who showed up, the presenters who were there, everything about it was everything we ever could have hoped for and more. Seriously, I cannot say thank you enough for those of you who were there. And again, we just want to remind you that because it went so well, we are going to have a winter summit. It's going to be on December 28th. Here's the deal. We knew December 28th was either going to work really well for a lot of people or maybe not so much because, of course, Christmas is just a few days before. People are traveling for the holidays. There's just a lot going on. But at the same time, there are always a handful of people who are looking for something to do. So if you are free on December 28th, we would love to have you join us for our winter summit. We already have quite a few amazing presenters lined up. First of all, Sydney and I are both going to be doing keynotes, of course. Mine is going to be all about routines and procedures after winter break that you're going to need to reteach to your students because, yes, maybe they were only gone for a couple of weeks or not even a couple weeks. Maybe they were only gone for 10 days, but those 10 days are going to feel like you are starting the school year over. So that's what mine is going to be all about. Sydney is going to be sharing all about parent-teacher conferences. If you know Heidi, she is all about the science of reading. We have someone covering ELL. We're talking about self-care. There are already so many awesome things that are going to be happening at the Winter Summit, so be sure to grab your ticket by the end of today, actually. They're still on early bird special until the end of today. So all you have to do is go to collegetoclassroom.com/winter. You can grab your ticket there. We absolutely want you to be there. Okay, so let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. Whether you're a first-year teacher, veteran teacher, or just a mom trying to gain some new insights, you are right where you are meant to be. Kayla Durkin, founder of the Blossoming Teacher course, is passionate about helping new teachers blossom into the teacher they were born to be. Kayla wants to help inspire teachers to be their best self, whether that means sharing about personal or professional development, self-care, or the latest and most effective teaching strategies. Through this podcast, you will hear from real teachers sharing their stories about teaching, all with one main goal in mind: to be able to make an impact and help other teachers blossom. And with that, here is your host, Kayla Durkin.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're talking all about the 3 R's to thriving during your first week in the classroom. But actually, it's more like the 3+1 R to thriving during your first week in the classroom, because I have 3 R's that I firmly believe in, but at the same time, I also have a bonus R that I don't want you to forget about. And we've already talked a lot about that one. So let's just throw it out there. The bonus R is rest and relaxation. You've heard me say it again and again and again. This school year is going to be the absolute best year ever, but at the same time, there are going to be days where you're just exhausted, where you're tired, because anytime we do something new, sometimes things get hard. So before the year begins, before we get into the busyness of back to school, maybe you're already grinding really hard every single day, but please take time to rest and take time to relax. It might happen to be on a weekend. It might have to be on an evening. You leave that teacher bag at school. You decide you don't have to finish that bulletin board tonight. Whatever it is, take time to do things that fuel your bucket Actually, I just want to say I was on a webinar this week with Marissa Rader from the Nourishment Haven. Those of you who know me, you know Marissa's my bestie. But anyway, I was on her webinar this week, and one of the things she talked about is that we can't pour from an empty cup. And at the same time, we don't ever want our cup to be empty. We want our cup to be abundantly full. And so all of the water that's overflowing out of our cup, that's what we want to be giving away. But if our cup is not full, if it's not abundantly full, we aren't going to have anything to give away. So give yourself rest, take time to relax, make sure your cup is abundantly full before this school year begins so that you're able to give it everything you've got. So that's our little bonus R. Absolutely, positively. Please, please, please do not forget to rest and relax before all the craziness begins. But the three main R's that we're talking about today, one happens to be relationships, one is routines, and one is resiliency. So let's start off with relationships because I know you've heard it a million times, but relationships are going to be the most important thing that you do this school year. Now, today we're talking all about how to thrive during your first week in the classroom. And part of that is the relationships that you're building with your coworkers, the relationships that you still have going on at home, and then, of course, the relationships that you have with your students as well. So if you still have some time before you go back to school and you're going in and out of the building, getting your classroom ready, maybe you have some back to school teacher PD days, whatever it is, I want you to focus on first building those relationships with your colleagues because those are going to be the people that carry you through this school year. They're going to be the people that you go to for advice, the people that you go to just to brainstorm and to lesson plan and to just continue filling your cup all school year long. So first things first, really work on those relationships with your colleagues, with your administration. I always like to say, get your colleagues' numbers. You never know when something is going to pop up at the last minute. You never know when there's going to be a traffic jam and you're running late. You never know if maybe you forgot something, it's late at night and you need to ask someone a question and you don't want to send that email. So if you can, find some colleagues that you can become close with and grab their cell phone numbers. Another thing that maybe your school already has in place, but maybe it doesn't, if you can, go out on a whim and ask if you can start a Facebook page for the colleagues at your school. And then in there, you can communicate. Maybe someone's going out for happy hour and they're going to post in there, hey, everyone meet at the ground round after school. Maybe there's an event going on over the weekend and they want to see who can possibly attend. If there's a Facebook page for your colleagues at your school, a place where you can communicate, ask questions, post ideas, it just really helps build that culture in that community and gives you a chance to get to know people on a more personal level as well. So first things first, build relationships with your colleagues and your administration. The second big part of relationships that I want to talk about are the relationships that you have going on at home. Just because you're a first-year teacher does not mean that you shouldn't have time to hang out with your family and your friends. Yes, you're going to be working longer hours than usual, and yes, there are going to be things that you have to do at nighttime, days that you have to stay late, events that you have to attend after school hours, but I still want you to find time to do the things that are most important to you. And so part of that means building the relationships that you have at home because those are the people who are going to be with you through the end. Yes, of course, your new colleagues, your administration, they're going to become your new work family, and some of them might even become your best friends. Two of my coworkers were actually bridesmaids in my wedding. It's seriously so beautiful how you can build relationships with your coworkers that become lifelong friendships, but at the same time, we still need to be feeding the relationships that we have at home too. So if you have a spouse, if you have a pet, if you have a child already, if you have parents that are nearby, still make time for them throughout the school year because that's going to be a chance for you to kind of just let go of everything that happened for the day and just focus on something else. And sometimes that's the most important thing that we can do is just get school off of our mind and do other things that are going to keep us busy and just help us remember who we are as a person. And then the last part of relationships for thriving during your first week in the classroom is, of course, building those relationships with your students from the moment they walk in the door, whether that's at back to school night or meet the teacher, or maybe it's right there and then on the very first day of school, you are meeting them for the very first time. We want to make sure that our students feel welcome, they feel seen, they feel heard, and most importantly, that you know their name. Your goal by the end of the school day should be to know your students' names. And yes, some of you might be thinking, I teach in a middle school or a high school, so I have like 125 students. Still, work on it every single moment that you possibly can. The sooner you know their names, the sooner they are going to trust everything that you're saying, and everything about the upcoming school year is going to be that much easier. When we think about those first few days of school and building relationships with your students, I know that you're probably already feeling the pressure of, I need to jump into the curriculum. There are so many standards I need to teach. How am I going to get through all of these lessons? I have so many units. I can't even imagine finishing them throughout this school year. And that's okay. It's okay if you don't dive into the curriculum right away. I don't want you to dive into the curriculum right away, at least not for the first 3 days. Seriously, take time to build relationships with your students through activities, through movement, through STEM projects. Anytime that we can get our students up and moving around the room and just getting to know their other classmates, it's going to build the community and the culture inside of our room, and it's going to help them feel more welcomed and more safe, and it's just going to be a better place for everyone. So I'm sure I already have a lot of people thinking, if I'm not doing the curriculum for the first 3 days, what am I doing with my students? Well, here's what I like to suggest. I think that you should still try to stick to your schedule, which is what we're going to talk about in the routines are for thriving during your first week in the classroom. But during that scheduled time, when you have math, when you have reading, social studies, whatever it is, you can still be doing activities that fit into that content or that subject area, but pick activities that allow movement, that allow conversations, that allow students to work together as a team and to really build those relationships among their classmates, and at the same time with you as well. If you're right in there with them during those activities, getting to know your classmates as they're working together, you're going to be able to hear some of those conversations and get to know a little bit more about what interests them. And by you taking time to stop and get to know each of those groups and talk to your students and address them by name during this team building time, it's really going to show them that you truly are there for them and that you do care about them. So, as a recap for our first R, relationships, during your first week in the classroom, whether you start school on a Monday or a Wednesday or whatever it is, still make time for your relationships outside of school, but at the same time, make sure you are going out of your way, out of your comfort zone to build relationships with your colleagues while you are at school. And then, of course, let the curriculum wait a couple more days and just take time to get to know your students on a personal level. That way, when you jump into the curriculum, they're rip-roaring and ready to go because they trust you and they want to start learning from you. So that's our first R. Our second R now, like I said, is routines. So when we talk about routines, we're talking about your personal routines at home, but we're also talking about the routines that you are doing every single day inside of your classroom. So let's start with personal first. If you have not started school, if you still have some time before the school year begins, perfect. I don't know if anyone has ever told you this before, but I want you to start practicing your routine for school before the first day of school. I mean, getting up, working out, showering, making your coffee, getting your lunch bag ready to go, grabbing all of your stuff, whatever it is, getting in your car and driving to school and seeing how long it takes you to get there. On the first day of school, the traffic in town is probably going to be a lot busier than it typically is, and more than likely, you probably have to be at the school way before the students have to be there anyway. However, let's start practicing those routines ahead of time. And maybe you get ready for the day and you go to your classroom and you just spend that day getting used to being in your classroom for a long extended time. You probably still have things to set up, you probably still have curriculum you can look at, so take time to do that. Now, with that, there are routines, there are things that make you the person that you are, and I want you to continue practicing being that person. I used to always say to my students, the person you practice is the person you become. And honestly, I'm pretty sure I might have made up that quote, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. I've been saying it every day for 7 years, so who knows? Anyway, the person you practice is really the person you become. If you practice waking up on time, if you practice getting that morning walk in, if you practice doing the things that make you who you are, you're going to become the person that you want to be. Now, if you don't practice getting up early, if you don't practice getting up when your first alarm goes off, if you don't practice having your clothes laid out and your lunch bag ready to go and everything ready for the morning, you're probably going to become the person that is typically late, that's running behind, that doesn't have everything they need, that's trying to make copies right before the school day begins, and then the copier jams and you don't have what you need. So the person you practice is the person you become. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a list of the things that you enjoy doing that are special to you. Maybe you like to work out 3 days a week. Maybe you think it's important to do yoga for 5 minutes every morning just to stretch and wake yourself up. Maybe you have a dog who likes to go for walks in the morning. Whatever it is, make a list of the things that make you who you are. Do you do a Bible devotional in the morning? Do you like to read for a little bit when you wake up or listen to podcasts? Do you like to watch the news right away in the morning? Whatever you like to do, think of those things right now and come up with a list. Now that you have your list, how are you going to still fit those things into your day when you're working 40 plus hours a week as a teacher, when you have other responsibilities that go along with being a classroom teacher? If you know ahead of time that there are certain routines that you want to continue doing during this upcoming school year, and you start practicing them before the school year begins, again, the person you practice is the person you become. You'll be able to continue doing the things that matter most to you, which in turn is going to continue to fill your cup so that your cup is abundantly full so that you can continue giving to others instead of always feeling like you don't have time for yourself. So find the routines that are important to you and then start practicing them before the school year begins so that you can continue doing the things that are most important to you. A few other things that go along with routine include having healthy meals that you can eat for lunch and supper every day, going to bed at a decent time, laying out your clothes the night before, packing your lunch, making sure your coffee maker is ready to go for the morning, putting some systems and processes in place that are going to help you thrive during that first week in the classroom. If you already know which outfits you're going to wear your first week in the classroom, then you're not going to have to worry about it, and it's not going to take up brain power when you're thinking about all of the other things you have to do for that first week. If you've already made some freezer meals that are ready to go, you meal prepped a little bit, you know what you're having for lunch and supper that first week in the classroom, you are going to feel more successful, and your body is going to appreciate that you took time to nourish your body with foods that are going to fuel you so that you have the energy to keep going. And then just don't forget to get into a good bedtime routine as well. You already know you need to wake up on time, but waking up on time and going to bed at a decent hour go hand in hand. The earlier you go to bed, the easier it will be to wake up early. If you thrive off of 6 to 7 hours of sleep, then account for that. If you need 7 or 8 or even 8 or 9, account for that. It's going to be hard to start going to bed early, but I promise you, going to bed early so that you can wake up early is only going to make you feel more successful and help you thrive during your first week in the classroom. Now, just like you thrive off of a good routine, your students are going to thrive off of routine as well. Students need consistency. So just like I said a little bit ago when we're building relationships, trying to fit activities that go into those content areas, the sooner you can kind of get into a routine in your classroom, doing morning meeting at this time, having math every day at this time, reading every day at this time, going out for recess at this time, having snack here, using the restroom there. Anytime you can have a routine, your students are going to feel more successful, especially if you teach younger students. I mean, really any students, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever it is, but the more routine we have, the easier it will be to get into the flow of things. Some schools require you to have a very specific schedule during your day that they put together for you. Whereas other schools give you a lot of freedom and say, you know what, you're on your own for lunch break, you're on your own for recess, you're on your own for math, reading, social studies, all of the subjects. So, depending on what your school's requirements are, first find out, do you have to have your math and your reading block at a specific time? Is there a scheduled recess? Is there a scheduled lunchtime? Find out what's required and then start building your schedule from there. And same for you middle and high school teachers who just teach one subject. Are you required to have a 5-minute bell ringer? Are you required to have exit slips at the end of your day? Find out what is required for you during your block of time and start building it from there. So now, because I said you're maybe not jumping into the content right away, your first few days of teaching, if you're teaching middle school or high school and you know you have to do a bell ringer every single day when the students get there, those first couple days, do a brain teaser, do something fun, do something that's going to get those kids talking. It doesn't necessarily have to be content specific. Now, maybe you can find a fun brain teaser that goes along with the content you're teaching. For example, if you're teaching math, I know all of us on Instagram and Facebook, whenever we see those pictures where we have to find out the value of the flower, the value of the watermelon, the value of the apple, whatever those shapes or icons are, students love those things. So if you teach math, that would be a great warm up for the first couple days of school. Something just to get students talking, but it's not directly correlated with the standards that you're going to be teaching within those next couple days. As for your elementary students, especially those really young students, if you can have that set schedule where your students know every single day at 10 a.m. they're going to have an opportunity to use the restroom, wash their hands, have their snack, their bodies will get adjusted to that. Yes, there are going to be kids who need to go to the restroom before 10 a.m., and that's totally okay. You're going to have to figure out your routine for that as well. But for the most part, if students know that I'm going to have an opportunity to go to the restroom here, it's just going to make everything so much easier. So as a recap for routines, I want you to take time to figure out how you are going to have a routine for yourself at home, your morning routine, your getting ready routine, driving to school, eating healthy meals, coming home from school, eating healthy meals that fuel you, going to bed at a decent hour, making time to read books. Whatever it is, I want you to figure out how you are going to put together a routine that works for your personal life, and then make sure you have a set routine for your students. And I don't even mean routine just as in schedule. I mean routines for everything. Routines for handing in their papers, routines for if they do have to use the restroom, routines for getting a drink, routines for lining up. Get your set schedule into a routine, but then also make sure you have your procedures put into place for those routines as well. And the very last R that we are talking about today is resiliency. The definition of resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape. So here's what I want to tell you about resiliency. On those first couple days of school, there are going to be things that happen that you didn't account for. There are going to be instances where something happens with a student, something's not ready in time, you thought an activity was going to go better than it did. Whatever the situation is, I want you to have resiliency and I want you to bounce back into shape right away in the moment and just say to yourself, you know what? Is this really a big deal or can we keep going? If students get into an argument or there's a situation on the playground, there are a million things that could go wrong those first couple days of school. Of course, I hope they don't. I hope you have the best first couple days of school that anyone could ever imagine. But when things don't go as planned, when things don't work out the way they should, I want you to give yourself grace and bounce back and just don't let it get you down. We always get a choice in every single situation, and we get to choose to let it decide how we are going to move forward. So, in those cases that are hard, I want you to choose to see the bright side, to see the positive in every situation, and to just keep moving and to just keep going with the flow, doing what you do, being as positive as you possibly can. I'm not sure if you've seen this while you've been student teaching or if you have any experience in the classroom yet, but students can read you and they know exactly how you feel. If they can tell you're bothered by something, they're going to start picking up on that emotion too. So the stronger that we can be, the more resilient that we can be, the better it will be for our students so that they don't start taking on those same emotions. There are going to be hard days. There are going to be days that they truly just don't go as planned. So please give yourself grace and just know that it doesn't have to define who you are as a teacher. Keep moving forward. Keep doing what you do best. You are absolutely amazing at what you do, and I fully believe that you are more capable than you know. So there we have it, the 3+1 R's to thriving during your first week in the classroom. Find time to rest and relax so that your cup is overflowing with abundancy and so that you can share it with everyone around you. Build relationships with your colleagues. Continue building those relationships with the people who are at home who love you the most. Make sure you spend time those first couple days building relationships with your students. And when things do not go as planned, bounce right back. I know you can do it. You've got this. And of course, if you need anything at all, I am here for you every single step of the way. So thank you so much for being here today. If you ever need anything, please reach out to me on Instagram. You can find me at North Dakota Teaching. And it would mean the world to me if you drop down below, if you left a review, and let other people know how this podcast has helped you and inspired you as a teacher. Alrighty, friends, I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Be sure to tune in to the next episode for more teaching tips to make an impact. Until next time.